Alright, it's Mr. Bernay. I'm going to show you now how to solve inequalities as well as graphing your solution. So I've already made my foldable. I've glued it onto the left side of my notebook. I've got my title and my notebook as well. So next I'm going to show you how to solve inequalities and then how to graph those inequalities that you solve. So solving inequalities is just like solving an equation, except for, and by the way, we're only going to do one-step and two-step inequality equations. So just like what we did when we solved equations, one step and two steps. Except for, you see this asterisk I have here. Whenever you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, you must flip the inequality symbol. And I would like you to copy all this down in your notebook, so you can pause the video here if you need to copy that down. So again, solving inequalities just like solving an equation, except for when you multiply or divide at the end, when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality symbol. And I'll show you one just like that, where you use that rule. Just a reminder, when you're graphing these inequalities that you solve, the ones that have open circle are less than, that's a comma, greater than, or not equal to. And then the closed circle symbols are less than equal to, greater than equal to, or just equal to. So the graphs of those inequalities have closed circles. The graphs of these inequalities have open circles. And I'd like for you to copy this down in your notebooks as well. So pause here if you need to. Alright, next I'll take you through 3 examples of inequalities. And I'm going to solve these, and I'm also going to graph them. So again, we're going to solve these just like we did when we solved one-step and two-step equations. This is a two-step equation. Except for the only difference here is that instead of having an equal sign, you have a less than symbol, which will only come into play at the very end of the problem when we go to graph it. So for now, just imagine that this is an equal sign. That all the steps are the same as they would be for a regular equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to get b by itself on one side, because that's my variable. So to do that, I'm going to get rid of this 5 here by subtracting it, doing the inverse operation. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side as well. So those cancel out, make 0. Gives me 8b on one side is less than 29 minus 5, which is 24. And then my last step, since I am multiplying by 8 here, I need to do the opposite, the inverse operation, which means to divide by 8. So I wind up with b is less than 24 divided by 8, which is 3. b is less than 3. So again, this is just like what we did when we solved equations. Got the variable by itself on one side using inverse operations, and your solution on the other side. But except now we have a less than symbol instead of an equals symbol. So now our last step is to graph that inequality. Probably should have left myself a little more room. You might want to leave yourself more room in your notebook. But I'm going to make my own number line. That's 0. Here is 3. So b is less than 3. Since this is less than, I'm going to need an open circle at 3. Open circle. And less than is this direction. Less than 3. So I put an open circle at 3, and I shade to the left of that open circle at 3 because my solution is b is less than 3. So it could be any number to the left of the number line of 3, because those are all numbers that are less than 3. Alright, example 1. Second example, and again, I'd like you need to copy all this down in your notebook, each step that I did, and also the graph of the equation. And again, you might want to leave yourself more room than I did. For the next one, same thing. This is a two-step equation, so I'm going to treat it just like I would a regular equation, except for now, instead of an equal sign, I have a greater than or equal to symbol. But the steps are still the same. I'm going to try to get d by itself on one side. So I'm going to get rid of this negative 11 by adding 11 to it, doing the opposite, inverse operation. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side as well. So 1 plus 11 is 12. So now on the left side, I have minus 2d, or negative 2d, is greater than or equal to 12. So now the last step would be to divide, because the d is being multiplied by negative 2 here. But when I do that, when I divide, I'm dividing by a negative 2. And if you look back at our rule here, whenever you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, which I just did, you must flip the inequality symbol. So now instead of greater than or equal to, I'm going to flip that, and I'm going to have less than or equal to as my symbol. D on this side, 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6, because these have different signs, and positive divided by a negative is a negative. So now I have, for my solution, D is less than or equal to negative 6. All my steps were the same as they were when I solved equations, except for I had this one rule to follow here. I divided by a negative number at the end, so that means that I had to flip my symbol. Negative means the opposite, so that means to flip the symbol. Alright, final step is to graph that. So if I have 0 here on my number line, negative 6 would be this direction. D is less than or equal to, so that's going to be a closed circle at negative 6, because it could be equal to negative 6, but D could also be less than negative 6, so I'm going to shade to the left of that negative 6. That's what that graph should look like. You need to copy all this down into your notebook. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, the last example, we have x being divided by 10, or x over 10, is less than or equal to 5. I'm going to copy it down underneath. X over 10, less than or equal to 5. My first step is to multiply each side by 10, because the x is being divided by 10 here. The opposite of divided by 10 is multiplied by 10. So when I multiply that side by 10, I get x by itself. It is less than or equal to, I must also multiply the other side by 10. 5 times 10 is 50. So that was a one-step equation. I'm done. I've got x by itself on one side. It says x is less than or equal to 50. Now I'm ready to graph. That was a one-step problem. We have 0 and 50. Okay, my answer says x is less than or equal to 50. So I look up here, that means I have a closed circle, less than or equal to. Closed circle at 50. We don't know what the solution is, but we know that it could equal 50, or x could be less than 50. I'm going to shade to the left. My answer could be 50, or it could be less than 50. X could be less than or equal to 50. So that's what my graph should look like. Closed circle at 50, shade to the left. Copy that all down into your notebook on the right side. That's what it should look like when you're finished. Good luck.